for showing up for community. Erin gave us a very, very high-level summary of some of the things that happened in the budget. It's just an amazing moment for the city of Boston to have a governor who knows our city as well as she does as a former resident, who has served all of us for many, many years, to have leadership at the State House who know and love our city and are fighting for us in all different spaces. Those things wouldn't have happened without his leadership. And so these are some of the things that we were told years ago would be impossible for Boston to actually have a direct voice on the governance board of the MBTA, and they've made it happen at the state. So we're so grateful. Than you at Work District Council, so it wasn't just the traffic. So I heard the prompt about what is the biggest challenge for this area of the city and what are we doing about it. There's a lot that's happening around the city. I will just say at a broad level, what I'm trying to push for and work with all of these incredible colleagues on every day is to make Boston the best city for families. I truly believe that every other thing we want to happen for our city, a strong economy, a thriving future, a place that we are sort of connected to and proud to live in, that all happens if we make it possible for people from every generation, from every background to thrive together. And so this concept of family, I don't just mean, a certain vision of a box of a traditional conception of family, but I mean, we are a city right now that is so expensive to live in that basically if you want to have a roof over your head, everyone in the household has to be generating income to be able to afford that. And that squeezes out kids who are not generating income, seniors who are on fixed incomes. And so to have that multi-generational experience, we have to center what does it mean for everyone in the family to be able to thrive here. And for downtown, you all, this resident association, which has grown so much since the early days of the iteration when people weren't thinking about downtown as a place for residents at all, much less families. And so I want to thank you for your activism and organizing and mobilizing to make sure that this is a part of the city that's reflected in all of that. Here, when we say we want families to thrive, a couple different things come to mind. One, as mentioned earlier, I hear a lot of concerns around what does safety mean, and I want to, if there's time, put a little context to that. Two, there's a lot of concern around, if we are thinking about the ways in which cities in general have changed after the pandemic and are still trying to adjust. Some places are settling back, many places are still healing and have a lot of work to do. And then there are some places like here where we're not quite sure where things are going to settle yet. The mix of whether people are going to come downtown to work from other places and contribute to supporting small businesses and active foot traffic, that can no longer be relied on as the primary way that people feel active and connected and safe in an area. We have to envision this area and take action in planning for this to be a thriving residential mixed-use district where all of those pieces happen 24 hours a day, not just between 9 to 5, Tuesday through Thursday. So maybe I'll just take 2 seconds kind of on the overlap of those two pieces. One is that we are trying to work really hard to incentivize conversions from office to residential, the type of events and programming, the infrastructure so that people who are able to make the choice are choosing to be downtown, whether it is the transportation side really digging into what different schedules feel like and the reliability, or on the housing side, how do we continue to support and require housing in all parts of the city and especially here. And then on the safety side, Councilor Mejia talked about a lot in this approach of how do we ensure we're providing accountability in the moment, right? When there's an action that has been committed, there has to be consequences that are known, and that is part of the system that we're building. But more importantly, how do we provide the services so that that action doesn't repeat for a person or a group of people? And more, we need to make sure we're having this conversation with families across the city about what our young people need in this moment coming out of the pandemic, so that we're providing every opportunity to choose from and not just what feels like a limited set of options. More concretely, our departments have been working very closely together. Our approach is to tackle hard challenges by breaking down the silos of different departments so that we're collaborating and bringing that holistic approach, and also building the foundation so that it can actually be a sustainable solution and not just a one-time temporary Band-Aid. So on safety, for example, and thinking about a challenge that many cities have as downtowns are more and more fluid in who's there at what times of day, and we're not seeing necessarily the foot traffic of before. Partnering business by business with some of the major anchor institutions in this area of the city, having a real plan and strategy with Macy's, for example, and the Boston Police Department and our Center for Youth and Families and Youth Engagement Office, having a meeting every single week where 20 different agencies across the city come together, and any young person who needs extra support, who has come through the radar of a situation that happened at a T station, which came through transit police, or something in the schools that a guidance counselor was concerned about, or something at home, maybe where an employee of the Boston Housing Authority flagged something, that there is one place where we're talking about the same people from all sides and who's going to provide the services and who's going to provide the outreach. So my ask for this room is, we want to be responsive both to the immediate and to the kind of more systemic and long term. If there are particular areas, intersections, streets, times of day that you feel we need to put a little bit more strategy and intention to, around visibility, around activity with events or other ways that we're creating driving foot traffic, please, the more specific the feedback, the better in us being able to take that forward. And then in terms of the systemic and the long term, we are doing a lot to try to make sure we can help grow and shift the neighborhood to a more and more residential mix with your feedback and with what you think residents, if there's anyone who knows how we can encourage and attract more residents here, it is the people who are experiencing this every day. So I'll just give a very micro example. Many of the parts of the city that drive me craziest as you're walking down the sidewalks and you're like, why is that bumpy or broken or sort of paved over in a really in a way that is impossible for those in a wheelchair or motorized scooter to get across. Many of those are right in this area, in downtown Crossing, Chinatown, and just a taste of my world and how we solve issues. It's not just as simple as we're gonna just prioritize getting our teams out there and fixing it, because this area of the city, unlike many other parts, dates back to property ownership being very, the city having been constructed at different times and different eras, and many of these sidewalks are actually what's called area ways, where they are above spaces that belong to the building that they're in front of. So there's a whole basement area that actually extends underneath the street, the way the building was built. And the way that the property ownership lines work, we can't touch, as a city, we can't touch that sidewalk because it technically is belonging to, as part of the roof structure of the basement area below. So it's an area way. And so we've been exploring and trying to move as fast as we can on the legal changes that are necessary, where we're going to, rather than to say, let's beg this property owner to fix their own sidewalk, in which case they'll just kind of slap some asphalt over it and it's not even smooth with the next block over. How do we say, these are the standards, if you're not meeting them, we're going to do it, and then we're going to bill you afterwards for that, right? And here's the legal protection that we have as a city for doing that, even though it then might risk something happening to the space below and this and that. And so those on the council, this is our bread and butter of where we roll up our sleeves and get involved. And those are the kinds of issues that we're trying to address systemically. Once we have this legal system figured out, we'll be able to move through all of these sidewalks much more quickly. But many of these issues that might seem like, why is it that way? There's some underlying thing that we're trying to directly address head on now and do the work so that we won't have to ever think about it or be delayed by it again in the future. So thank you so much for gathering here. Open to whatever comes next, and I'm really grateful for your activism and all you do to make the city vibrant.